Hello and welcome to UGA Sports Rumors versus Facts. I'm Blaine Gilmer here with Trent Smallwood as we bring you all things Georgia football recruiting related. Took a little break last week. I had a little vacation, and somewhat of what happens when Roddy goes on vacation. Trent Georgia had a recruit commit in class of 2024 running back. Tomarrion Parker. We'll get into that. We'll get into a decision that didn't go their way and Ricky Gibson and many more things on Georgia football recruiting related. But Trent, how's the week going so far? Got a big series going on behind you, I can see.
Yeah, good start, 3-0. But the week's going good. It's it's getting inching closer towards the season, and I guess as all the dog fans out there excited to coming back as defending national champions and trying to repeat.
It is a different atmosphere, but man, we've got dog faithful tuning in from all over the country. We've got Dallas, Texas in here, San Diego, California, which, by the way, there's a little connection to San Diego, California that we'll be talking about later on. Nolan says 5 minutes north of where the Dogs hoisted the national championship in Indy. Got a Forney, Texas dog in here. So lots of dog faithful tuning in from different places around the country. Go ahead and drop where you're from in the chat. We would love to see that. As a frequent of the show, South Carolina Low Country Dog says Beaufort, South Carolina. We got Hong Kong in the house, all the way from across the pond over there, tuning in, Trent. So there's lots of Georgia fans tuning in from all over the country, all over the world. In fact, it seems like. So everybody wants to know about Georgia football recruiting. And Trent, I guess before we get into questions, let's kind of just dive into, okay, class of 2023, the summer recruiting events are all over with. Coaches are really kind of to dive into fall camp and get ready for their season. Players are starting their high school seasons. Just kind of tell everybody, after being around doing this for years, what is this time of year typically like, and how much has it changed maybe over the last couple of years with some of the new things in recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of focus is, of course, on fall camp and getting your team ready to play that opener against Oregon, but you also you're looking into more of an evaluation period of positions of need that you might not quite filled, and going into in the high school games have already started. Film's already out there. You got coaches evaluating film. One particular position is running back position, who I've heard of a couple guys that Dale McGee has reached out to, and we'll see if anything comes of that. But there's just evaluating positions of need in this 2023 class, and then really turning some focus towards the 24 class and looking at what kind of needs are there.
Absolutely, and we will get into some of those running backs for sure. It seems to be interesting because now, everything seems to have moved up. First it was the early signing period, and now it's, most of your guys are already enrolled after that, when January comes around. Now there's guys moving up and reclassifying. There's talks of Georgia's latest commitment to Tomarrion Parker. He openly told us, hey, Kirby Smart said, we would love if you would consider reclassifying as a class of 2023 running back. So when it comes down to it, everything seems to be moved up and goes faster and faster. But I would caution people to realize that I don't think, even though Kirby Smart has been consistently in the top 5 every year he's been there since after his very first class when he came on, inside the top 5 recruiting, I don't think now, in the days of the NIL and the transfer portal, that there's going to be a map on how to do this. Trent, I think they're going to treat every class differently. And if Georgia doesn't get some of these top tier guys maybe that they're going for, like a Justice Haynes or something like that, Georgia may be more inclined to say, you know what, we didn't really have to utilize the transfer portal this last time around. They may go heavy in it the next year.
Yeah, I think you're on a year to year basis with your recruiting. Just some fact that you know the kids you're recruiting are different. The positions of need vary from year to year, and there's also you talk about the transfer portal. There's also what head coaches leave after the season, what kids are hitting the transfer portal, and you know yeah, Kirby elected not to go heavy this year. He picked up a few quality players last year that kind of led him to help lead to a national championship, and you could see that again after this year. You got another group of kids that are probably or could leave early, and you got your group of seniors. And that you you'll see what happens down the stretch here in this recruiting class. But there's a couple of different positions that I could see going into the spring of next year that could be needs for the Bulldogs in 2023.
Realistically, I could see that, depending on what happens, I could see Georgia not taking a quarterback in this class, maybe going out and getting a quarterback via the portal. I could see them taking maybe one, maybe no running backs, as crazy as it sounds in this class, and going to the portal and doing that. Defensive line, the same thing. If Georgia doesn't get these top guys, Georgia is not necessarily in a position now program-wide with the talent they have built up before all the NIL bonanza and everything that's going on to where they have to reach for guys. I think they can be a little bit more patient and kind of see. And also, Trent, I think an interesting dynamic is, a lot of these schools are killing it right now on the trail, but eventually toe has to meet leather and the games have to be played, and some outcomes are going to, even though we are deep in the era now of NIL and the monthly figures and all that kind of stuff influencing these kids, I still think winning matters to a lot of them.
Yeah, most definitely, because winning is security. Winning is security for coaches on that staff who are recruiting these kids, and not only that, I mean, a lot of these coaches are saying, come join a championship squad, or come help us lead to a championship. And if you're going 3-9 while they're in high school or while they're being recruited, it's hard to imagine them, getting to that national championship level. It's going to be interesting. You've seen it in the past with teams like Tennessee, who's had big springs on the recruiting trail, and then that kind of died off when it hit the season. I'm interested to see what happens with Florida. I'm interested to see what happens with Miami. Those type of schools that are having a lot of success. Yeah, Texas, they're having a lot of success on the recruiting trail, but have struggled in the years past when it came time to tee it up. And it'll be interesting to see what happens, here in a couple weeks.
We'll talk about, obviously Texas and the relation there is Georgia was in the last two for Arch Manning with Texas. And, Texas couldn't have had a worse weekend. They'd lose Isaiah Nayor to a knee injury, who was supposed to be maybe the most consistent receiver that Quinn Ewers had. And then a guy Hall, a guy that everybody questioned if he was a good fit when Sark decided to bring him in, somebody that Nick Saban publicly excoriated on the podium saying, hey, this guy was not it, like he was not ready when his number was called. He dropped that big third down against Georgia. He gets arrested over the weekend. Who knows if he's indefinitely suspended. So I think some of those questions that people had about maybe Sark and can he build the culture? Can he get the culture right? All that kind of stuff. And some of the guys he's bringing into that program, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what that looks like a year or two from now.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, yeah, I know you got Arch Manning and you got some guys coming in with him, but I think a lot depends. Texas is quick to pull the trigger and say, hey, we ain't winning. We got all this money here. We got to make a change. And I think these next couple of years are big for Sark. Not saying he's on the hot seat right now, but another season, another 7-5 season, and he's going to find himself on the the hot seat quickly. And coming to the SEC, it ain't going to make it any easier.
Well, and one reason people may ask, why are they talking about some of these other schools? I think why we're talking about it is because legitimately some of these classes that let's say Texas A&M doesn't win the way they're supposed to. Miami could very well go in there and beat Texas A&M this year, and that would really set Texas A&M back with, still having to go to Tuscaloosa a couple weeks after that, things of that nature. So if they don't keep going in an upward trend, that's a program you say, okay, how many enter the transfer portal after the season? Same thing with Florida, with what they're doing right now. So there are some schools with some recruiting momentum out there, but I think it's going to be interesting to see, is that, kind of a flash in the pan type deal, or are they able to sustain that type of success going forward?
I think one of the big things also, I guess, when it comes to Texas, what kind of promises was made? And I know there was, the NIL money and that type of thing. Were there promises made? Were our freshmen going to be irritated when they don't see the field, early in their careers? I think that's a risky play that they're going with out there, and it'll be interesting to see, what the mood these freshmen are in come about mid-season, or if you start to hear a little portal talk out in Texas A&M.
Well, and it's not just that. Think about it from a roster management standpoint. Literally, at some of these schools, you've got true freshmen coming in, have never played a down of football, and they're making big money. I mean, literally tens of thousands of dollars a month. Sometimes north of $20,000-$30,000 a month. And you've got guys who have been there, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, that aren't getting paid that kind of money. I mean, eventually there's a locker room dynamic. People can say, oh, well, that, we're going to manage that and all that you want. But man, if there's some old heads in there that are seeing some screw up freshmen get paid big time money, and like Lane Kiffin said, eventually, in the NFL, he said when he was a coach in the NFL, the guys that got paid the big money, he had to play them. I mean, so, how does that work when it comes to college? I'm fascinated by how college football is going to look a couple years from now.
I mean, yeah, no doubt. I mean, you see it all over. I mean, you see it on the Braves roster. You see who hit 7th or 8th. They were not making a big money and not necessarily contributing up to standards. I think it's definitely going to be interesting because especially these schools that are I guess buying recruits. It is a risky thing because, like you say, you do have those kids on campus who are not necessarily making that amount of money and might be higher on the depth chart, or a bigger star than the freshmen coming in that are making a buttload of money. And as a coaching staff, if that guy comes in and he doesn't produce like you think he's going to do, now where are you sitting? I mean, you got a guy sitting in 3rd string who's collecting this amount of money per month and never contributes. So it's very risky at buying these recruits like they are.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how it all turns out. I know Georgia, for that reason, the roster management part of it tends to not be a big fan of getting in bidding wars for true incoming true freshmen, and I don't think you'll see them continue to do that. I'm not saying Georgia's not utilizing NIL. There's been a huge push at the Classic City Collective to try to get things going because Georgia knows that they need a sustainable way to do that. But in terms of some of these just massive deals like Nico Iamaleava and Jaden Rashada and all these kind of guys, I don't think you're going to see Georgia too heavily involved into that. But Trent, without anything else here to kind of start off with, some of these questions and some of the more news we need to talk about is going to be involved in these questions. So go ahead and hit us with that first question there, Trent.
This is from DGD 1994. What's the most likely wide receiver haul at this point? Who are options to flip at running back?
Okay, so Trent, if you'll go ahead and take the wide receiver core there, then I'll kind of get us all on running back. So if you had to guess today, who are you feeling that Georgia lands at wide receiver before all is said and done?
Let's see. They have Cottrell committed. They have Yazid Haynes committed. I still like where they stand for Tyler Williams. Anthony Evans, I would probably predict Georgia, and one more. I still think they're recruiting Jalen Hale. They were recruiting Hykeem Williams. They're recruiting a few other guys, but I would go with those two and plus one. I think they might take one additional.
Yeah, and when you talk about Jalen Hale, I think people need to realize, Georgia has had Jalen Hale on campus multiple times. I know there's a lot of Texas and a lot of Alabama talking. If I had to put my money down on it, he's probably going to end up at Alabama, I would say, instead of Texas. Some people think he's going to Texas. I think Georgia is in a lot better shape, though, than people think in that recruitment. I think Georgia and Alabama are two kind of going neck and neck right there. Who knows? Texas, like I said, we know they're not shy to throw around the NIL money and things like that. So he could end up there as well if that's an important factor to him. But hey, Georgia is in good shape, I think. So I think what you said right there is pretty spot on. Cottrell's already committed. Add. And they've got Yazid Haynes, who they flipped as well. Oddly enough, they flipped Raymond Cottrell as well. People forget he was committed to Florida at one point. So 2 flips at wide receiver. If they were to get Anthony Evans this month, that would make 3 flips because he was committed to Arkansas, and Georgia was the one that first put the heat on him. So, a lot of those guys, and they do think Tyler Williams. So I think you're right on there. Running back, the flip options, I think the main flip you would see, obviously, they're still going after Justice Haynes. I don't know that that's how feasible that is at this point to that he ends up in the class, but I know they're going to pursue him until the ink dries on that letter of intent. And then Roderick Robinson out of San Diego, California. I've written a piece, interview with him. I did another piece interviewing his father, 6'1", 230 pounds, out of San Diego, but Trent, he says he models his game after Derrick Henry, a big physical back, but I've seen some videos of him in 7-on-7s and running wheel routes and stuff like that. For a 230-pound guy, this is a guy who can move, who can catch the ball, and is really, really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he is a Hall carrying the ball, and he's got that second gear when he hits the open field. Just watching this film, I mean, it looks like he's playing with a bunch of 5-flat 40 guys out in the field because he's always pulling away from the pack. So good hands, and I know that's one thing that Dale looks for in a running back is the ability to catch the ball out of the backfield. It's I've talked to several coaches that he's reached out to, and then that's one of the big things is he wants to not only see his running back film, but he wants to see film of route running, and he wants to see films of that particular running back catching the ball. So catching the ball out of the backfield is huge, and he definitely hits that.
And we should mention, I failed to mention, he's committed to UCLA right now. One thing that his father, Roderick Robinson Sr., told me when I was interviewing him is that Dell McGee came out and said, your son is an SEC back. He said he is an SEC guy. He needs to be playing in the SEC. So Dell McGee really playing up that, hey, you don't go play that Big Ten style ball, because UCLA moving to the Big Ten. But oddly enough, Roderick Robinson is a guy who has a lot of family in Alabama, Georgia, and South Carolina. So he's reportedly coming on a visit. They're looking at maybe that Auburn game for an official visit, which that Auburn game is going to be chock full of recruits, Trent. So that's kind of what we're seeing at wide receiver and running back. Before we go to our next question, though, I would be remiss if I didn't put this up for everybody to see. Guys, we have an unbelievable deal going on right now over on the website. If you use promo code RUNITBACK, you can pay just $33.18. What an ironic price there for your first year of coverage. And man, is there ever some coverage going on with UGA Sports right now with Dash, with Roddy, Dane, Brent, us guys here recruiting, Jed. Everybody is just putting a bunch of
hey, Paul, I'll give you a shout out, Paul.
Hey, Paul, yeah, Paul with the Sunday show over there. Paul, doing work over there. So we had that is a great opportunity for you. Use promo code Run It Back, and you can pay just $33.18 for your first year. I mean, that's a great opportunity there to get the benefit of all this site for a year for just like less than 2 lunches now. Just seems like so. All right, next question we got here, Trent. PA Dog 610 says, any word of 23 and 24 commits and prospects in attendance for the Oregon game? Trent, you may have heard of some. I know I've talked to Chris Peel. He plans on the safety out of Providence Day. He plans on being in attendance, and his teammate Jaden Davis, Providence Day, they could very well come together. Jaden Davis is not hadn't said definitely he'll be at the game, but he's looking into it. Tavani Mizell, the new commit, running back in the class of 2024, he's planning on getting over to that Oregon game. So, Trent, have you heard of any more guys that are planning on being in attendance?
I mean, nothing concrete, but I think you're going to see by the time it gets that week of the game, you're going to start hearing a lot more names, and I think it'll be a pretty good crowd. Of recruits. You might see more like 23 commits, but a bunch of 24 targets. You might see a couple 23 targets, but I would see a lot of commits and a lot of 24 targets and some commits in attendance.
Yeah, I just went to the Georgia Clemson game last year, and oddly enough, kind of where I was sitting, there was so many of those attendees there that were there for Clemson and for Georgia. AJ Harris was there last year, so things like that. You see guys there, and you're like, okay, this is interesting. Sammy Brown was there last year. Who knows? He may be in attendance again with that game just being down in Atlanta. So a lot of guys attend those. Trent, this is something that kind of made news this weekend with Georgia, Florida to some extent, because Georgia, Florida kind of, is able to newly give out tickets now, but that's not something that's been necessarily prevented. It's just been a neutral site thing that they haven't done. And Trent, are you still with us? I can't see you, man. Don't know if Trent's still in here with us. So I'm going to remove Trent for a little while in here. He can come back in with us. But let's go to our next question here from Pine Tree. What happened with Gibson? He seemed a good shot with Georgia, and he also seemed to be a big priority for UGA. So, all right, here's the thing with Ricky Gibson. Georgia was in very good position with him after around August 1st. As of August 3rd, August 4th, still checking in with sources and everything. Seemed all Georgia for Ricky Gibson. Tennessee came in with a late push. Georgia wasn't pushing quite as hard as Tennessee was there. He goes to the Volunteers. Georgia is pretty well set in the defensive backfield at the moment. I mean, they're still obviously going to add a couple more guys, and they would have loved to have a guy like a Ricky Gibson. That's why they offered him. That's why they wanted to bring him in. That's why they brought him on multiple visits. But they weren't going to push quite as hard as Tennessee when push came to shove there at the end. So that's kind of what happened with that one. Big Dog says, what is the latest on D-line prospects? Jordan Hall and recent decommit Tomarrion Parker. So he's talking about Tomarrion Parker, who decommitted from Penn State. I know Penn State is just praying to the good Lord that he goes anywhere but Georgia, because they're kind of tired of seeing their guys flip from Penn State down to Georgia. I think Tomarrion Parker, Georgia, Florida, right there in the mix for him. I think Georgia's much better positioned with Jordan Hall. I think they're putting more emphasis, more priority on Jordan Hall, to be honest with you. And I think that he's their number one guy. Trent, welcome back, sir. We're talking about DL here. So I finished talking about Ricky Gibson. I said, man, Tennessee just pushed a little harder at the end, and maybe a little harder than Georgia was willing to push.
Yeah, I think again, I think Georgia has a good defensive back class coming. I think they've had a few upsets, speaking like AJ Harris coming back and beating Florida for him, and a couple other guys that Georgia has landed kind of their top guys, and I think
I mean,
Tennessee
Justin Rhett, AJ Harris, Daniel Harris, Jonel Aguero. With Justin Rhett and Daniel Harris and AJ Harris, all three could play corner. I know Daniel Harris could move in, or Justin Harris could move in and play safety as well, because of size and length and stuff like that. But I think defensive back is kind of the least of Georgia's worries, to your point right now in this class.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think if you're going to take another one, you probably might take a look more towards the safety. Chris Pill comes to mind, but I only see Georgia taking one more defensive back if as long as they can hold on to the four they got.
Absolutely. So back to the question I was addressing when you had your little technical difficulty there. It said latest on DL prospects. I said, Jordan Hall is definitely, I think, by far and away their top priority right now, even more so than a James Smith. I think James Smith, someone obviously they like a whole lot, but Tomarrion Parker, I said Penn State's pretty much praying that he'll go anywhere but Georgia. They're just tired of seeing guys flip to Georgia, I think, up there at Penn State, Trent. But, Tomarrion Parker, I think Georgia, Florida, both in the mix. But Jordan Hall, I think the one that you want to circle in this class that Georgia's kind of, if there's a must-have, I think Jordan Hall is that must-have.
Yeah, definitely. I think he is, like a Jalen Carter, came in at more underrated type kid, and he's just kind of blossomed, and he's got potential written all over him. I mean, I think he would definitely be the top guy Georgia's after.
Absolutely. So, Scuffletown Dog asks this question: who are your breakout players on offense and defense besides proven ones? I think that Scuffletown is talking about the current Georgia team, but I want to take a little bit different angle on this, Trent. We'll answer that question real quickly. Who's your breakout player on offense and defense for the current Georgia team? And then I want to provide a different angle.
Breakout. Offense, I'll go offense, AD Mitchell. Defense, I'll go besides proven ones. Is that what we're doing?
Besides proven ones. So new breakout performers.
Well, I mean, I guess you have to go offense. You have to go Eric Gilbert, and defense, you'd have to go. I'm gonna go one of those inside linebackers. I think would be the one. I mean, you got Dumas Johnson and Munden. I think I'm gonna go Munden.
Yeah, I think I definitely think I'm gonna go Branson Robinson and Jamon Dumas Johnson. I think those are my two, that because I just don't know if Kendall Milton can stay healthy for a season. I would love to see it. He's a tremendous talent. I think the young man is a unbelievable young man. Like when you talk to Kendall Milton, interview him, great kid. Can you stay healthy? Aaron Smith, same thing. He hadn't been able to stay healthy during his career. Now a guy like a Dylan Bell or Denalyn Morsett's going to get a chance to step up. Who knows? Maybe even a CJ Smith with his speed, if he gets healthy, maybe he's able to step up and provide some plays. But I think Branson Robinson, that guy that's he's just Kirby Smart, when Kirby Smart starts talking about a freshman in camp, we learned this last year. He mentioned the name Brock Bowers a couple of times, and everybody's like, oh, okay, well, he's a freshman. But when Kirby Smart mentions you by name in camp, I think that you better pay attention, especially as a true freshman.
And I think one I'm watching closely, besides that with a freshman, is Hykeem Williams, because the way Georgia runs its defenses and its packages, Hykeem Williams is going to be able to have the opportunity to make a big impact, if not on early downs, definitely on those pass rushing third downs, and that you could see his stats really blossom in those pass situations.
Yeah, for sure. We got some questions out here. Alex Waller says, who will lead the team in sacks this year? I know we're getting off recruiting here, but people forget Robert Bill led the team in sacks last year. Robert Bill is a guy that Kirby Smart said is having an unbelievable camp. I think he could, with his experience and with attention that's going to be on the inside on Jalen Carter and maybe even on the other side just by scouting port notoriety with Nolan Smith, he could have another big year.
Yeah, and I think Jalen Carter is going to get in there and get some. I don't think he'll have huge numbers like a double-digit sack year, but I think he's going to have his fair share of sacks. Nolan, and I think you're going to see a fair share of sacks from the inside linebacker position. The way they blitz those inside linebackers, I think you're going to see Munden and that group. Demonte Johnson and all that group of inside linebackers, I think they're going to utilize that speed, and I think you'll see a fair share of sacks from that position as well.
Absolutely. Savannah Dog says each guy's talking about me and you's preference between Jaden Davis and Julian Sayans. So if you had to pick one of the two, who you taking, Trent? Personally, you're the director of player personnel. Who you taking?
That's tough, man. I mean, I want to say Jaden Davis just because I like the playmaking ability he brings, but I mean, you can't go wrong with either one of them. I think if I'll go Jaden Davis.
Yeah, I'm going Jaden Davis all day long. I know Julian Sayans is an unbelievable talent, but Jaden Davis is the guy you want. He gives you that, like you said, that playmaking ability. He's a guy that just oozes confidence. I mean, Jaden Davis is a young man that he's not cocky, but it's right on the borderline of being a little overconfident. I mean, he's that kind of a player out there, carries himself really well. I like Jaden Davis a lot.
Well,
so
that's a good trait to have. I mean, Stetson Bennett's the same way, and
absolutely,
I mean, that is no knock on him, but that's a big reason why he was a starter last year, and it's a big reason why he's as successful as he's been is because he's overconfident. And yes, it might come across as cocky sometimes, but you got to have that from the quarterback position. You can't have somebody that doesn't have that quality because you need somebody. Now, there's extremes. There's your Johnny Manziels and your guys like that, but you don't need to get that extreme. But you need a guy with that confidence that he's going to come in and make plays from day one. And I think he has that. And I think another guy like Gunnar Stockton, he's a top prospect that has it as well.
Yeah, for sure. The confidence is definitely a trait that you need at the quarterback position, short memory, all those good things. Shannon Sipsey from the YouTube channel says, who are the recruits you see Georgia getting to finish the class out? So right now, Trent, we're talking Georgia's got 2 wide receivers, so we'll kind of go by position. We've said that Anthony Evans and Tyler Williams are 2 that we feel pretty confident that Georgia, as of today, could end up with. And then you said maybe a Hykeem Williams, maybe a Jalen Hale. That would be kind of icing on the cake there at the wide receiver position if they get those. So let's say 2 of those, that would put you at 20. They're set at tight end. Offensive line, they've got 3 right now. Holding on to Bo Hughley, I think, as of now, is a huge deal. Keeping him. What do you think? Maybe one more. They flip one more offensive lineman and get 4 in this class, and maybe addressing the portal after that.
Yeah. I think 4 would be the number I would go with. I still think that
Monroe Freeland's still out there,
and I guess he just visited. Did he make it to campus in July? But yeah, he's a big target for Georgia, and of course there's just some others that Georgia's been high after that committed elsewhere that they'll continue to fill for this fall.
I think offensive line is definitely the position that you're most likely to see a flip at later in the year. For Georgia, Stacey Searles just getting his feet underneath him. And if Georgia is able to run the ball as well as I believe they're going to be able to run the ball this year, and not necessarily because it's the most dominant line or the most dominant backs, but I think more so because Georgia's got so many weapons on the outside that I think they're going to be able to spread people out and actually threaten people down the field with the passing game. And that's going to open up some things for the run game, Trent.
Yeah, and I think Georgia's at an advantage because they're a hard offense to defend. Whether or not you look at their team and you're like, oh well, they don't have George Pickens and they don't have Jermaine Burton, but they're a tough defense to. I mean, they're a tough offense to defend. Just for some fact, their tight ends create so many mismatches. So if you have multiple tight ends on the field, then you got to make a decision. Do I want to stay in a nickel, which it is who might require to defend Brock Bowers, or or they can drop Darnell Washington and play a little power game against that nickel. I just think they're a tough team to defend, and that's going to open up the running game when you split those tight ends out, or then you can bring them in and bunch them up, and they're just going to be hard to defend. And I think that running game could really flourish just because of the mismatches they have on the outside.
And our point on that was the running game flourishes. That makes offensive linemen head turn a little bit more. Be like, oh, hey, I want to go here. They're gonna let me. They're gonna go let me attack. Let me run block. That's what I want to do. So if they get up to 4 offensive linemen with the 4 receivers, the 2 tight ends, the 4 off, that would put you at 21. They're set at inside linebacker with 3 and Allen, Wilson, and Bowles. They have a kicker. 7 Cloud's committed right now. He's not going to probably end up being a part of this class. So I think you're looking at maybe a Jordan Hall to end up in the class, maybe even Xzavier Mcleod, because he commits later this week. I think Georgia's right in the thick of that one. I don't think that one's over by any means. I think Georgia, all sources are saying feel pretty confident about it. People that we've talked to. So it's right there between Georgia and South Carolina, it seems like, for Xzavier Mcleod. So you could see Jordan Hall end up there and Xzavier Mcleod. That would put you at 23, and then maybe another 2 more edge guys in Pemba and Damion Wilson would be 2 guys that they're really after. I think in Pemba being the biggest one that they want there, that would put you at 24, and maybe you get another DB as 25, and who knows, a quarterback flip at the end. Something along those lines puts you at 26. So I think that's kind of how that class would finish out, just roughly as of today. And we kind of, to that line, Trent, OU Herschel Walker says, will we make room, meaning Georgia, make room for Hall, McLeod, and Smith if all 3 wanted in? Yes, I think that Quay Russo, I had a future cast in for him as of a couple months ago. I'm getting closer and closer to moving that one elsewhere. I think Russo and James Smith probably going to end up somewhere else, not in this class for Georgia, in my opinion. But I think they would definitely take all 3. And then Trent, of course, they would take all 3 of Evans, Tyler, and Hykeem Williams for sure at wide receiver.
No doubt. And I think you have some flexibility with the new rules around the recruiting class. So, you could.
Yeah, the initial counters are out the window. You can sign as many as you want.
You can set that number and say, hey, I want to get at 26 or 27, and you could end up landing your top targets, and you get to 30. I mean, it's just it doesn't matter now. So,
yeah,
you just got to open up scholarships for them.
You just got to kick other guys out that are there. Reduce their NIL monthly fee. Tell them go try to find it somewhere else. So, and then OU Herschel Walker, he added in here best finishing move. He had to hit us with the wrestling question in here. Greatly appreciate. He said, who had the best finishing move? Mr. Wrestling 2 with the knee lift. Dusty Rhodes had the bionic elbow. Goldberg had the spear and the jackhammer, and Stone Cold with the stunner. I know OU Herschel Walker on the vault went with Mr. Wrestling 2 and the knee lift. I've got to go. I mean, this is a Georgia show after all, right? You got Bill Goldberg there, Georgia recruiting show. He was the spear and the jackhammer. Plus, I was a 90s baby, so I got to go with Goldberg and the spear and jackhammer right there. That's who I'm going with. You going with the stunner?
Goldberg was my pick before, I would have to go with Goldberg. But, I'm also, born and started watching wrestling in the 90s. So, I've been around. I guess you forgetting about the dirty sock, man.
Yeah, Mick Foley, for sure, absolutely. The last question we have here on the vault is MJ Sherman. What's the outlook on him? We didn't even talk about MJ, and I feel like that gets done a lot. He's a talented guy that came in, but Trent, I feel like he's being overshadowed to a certain extent by the hype that's coming with Marvin Jones and Hykeem Williams. And, he was playing against some, with a lot of talented linebackers that Georgia used in a lot of different ways last year when he didn't really, get to play a whole lot. But I think he's set to be a big contributor this year.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a lot more playing time than people realize. I mean, he was basically 1 year coming out of ACL last year, and this is his year to real flourish, and I think he's going to he's going to start off the year as the third outside linebacker behind Nolan Smith and Bill, and I think you're going to see him a lot, early in the season. I think you might see Marvin Jones and Michael on some pass rushing situations, and kind of similar how they use Adam Anderson early in his career, how they used Channing Tindall before he became a key contributor last year. But I think you're going to see those three guys because they're going to be trusted in run defense, and I think Sherman's going to have a huge role in this team.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of huge decision, huge roles coming up. Georgia, like we said, they're going after Anthony Evans. He commits on August 26th. Xzavier Mcleod as defensive lineman, he commits, makes his decision on Thursday, the 18th of this week, August 18th. So you got Mcleod on the 18th. You've got Anthony Evans on the 26th. I think you got Tyler Williams on September 27th. So there are some decisions kind of looming here, and there's some 2024 guys that Georgia's kind of getting further down the road with. So make sure that you are subscribed to the UGA Sports Vault. Again, pay just $33.18 for your first year and get full access today to all the behind-the-scenes stuff from practice, Roddy and Dash and all those guys breaking injury news, all that kind of stuff, telling you about the scrimmages, good stuff coming out, all the recruiting stuff. So as these decisions come up, use the promo code, run it back, and get $33.18. But Trent, anything before we sign off here?
No, I mean, a lot of high school football. I know there's some scrimmages been going on, but a lot of games coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I'll be going to Johns Creek and Parkview on Wednesday night, so I'll be over there watching. Georgia's got a couple, Jalen Crawford and Mike Matthews DBs at Parkview that they're going after in 24 class. So
I think I'm headed over watching Buford and Thompson Friday. So yeah, it's a big week.
Absolutely. Well, for Trent Smallwood, I am Blaine Gilmer. Guys, make sure to subscribe, like, turn on notifications. Use that promo code to get your $33.18 subscription for an entire year to UGASports.com. And we'll catch you next time on Rumors versus Facts.